When I first heard that teaching, follow your bliss, honestly, it felt like confirmation. Like I just had this awakening experience, this deep internal shift. And the idea of following my bliss, it just sounded right. It made sense. At the time, I was working at a law firm and I'd look around at my bosses, the people who were supposed to have made it, and I'd just think, you might be rich, but you clearly hate your lives. It felt like everybody around me was living out of alignment with their soul. So I thought, yeah, this bliss thing, I think that might be it. That's the answer. And to be fair, part of that was true, but the story I built around it, it was incomplete. That's really what this video is about, because if you take follow your bliss as your only compass in life, it can slowly start to pull you away from the deeper work. And by the way, if this kind of thing resonates with you, you want to explore it more intentionally, I run a membership program where you can go way deeper into this kind of inner work. And there's also a free 7-day course called the Spiritual Growth Accelerator. You can start that for free, and the links are down below. So let's get into it. In this video, I want to unpack 3 things that took me a really long time to understand. And honestly, they changed everything about how I relate to this idea of bliss. Firstly, follow your bliss. That's a limited teaching. It's useful, but it's not the full picture. And if you take it literally forever, it can really start messing with your life. Secondly, a lot of what we call bliss is actually just relief from anxiety. It feels like alignment, but it's often just escape. And learning to tell the difference between these two is huge. Thirdly, the kind of bliss that you're really looking for, well, it isn't conditional. It's not about everything going your way. It's about being connected to yourself, even when your mind is grumbling. So let's dive into point 1 then. Follow your bliss is a limited teaching. See, follow your bliss as a teaching in itself, it isn't wrong. It's just not complete. It's a great message when you're stuck in a job that you hate, living somebody else's expectations, or totally cut off from your intuition. It does get things moving. That's what it did for me. It gave me permission to leave the law firm, to stop chasing status, to reconnect with something that actually felt alive inside of me. But here's the thing. If you follow that idea forever, if you make feeling good the goal, you start getting really attached to comfort. And that's where this teaching starts to fall apart a little bit. Because eventually it started bleeding into the rest of my life. I'd find myself avoiding work just to watch more spiritual videos. And for a while, that felt like the right thing to do. I was just following my bliss, man. But something in me clearly needed that time. I was absorbing a lot. I didn't know back then that I was meant to teach one day, so it makes sense in hindsight. So I'm not rejecting that part of my path at all. But still, follow your bliss was only ever meant to get things moving. It's a starting point, not a life philosophy. Because the deeper work is learning to go beyond your preference for feeling good. Back then, I couldn't do anything unless I felt good first. And that's not wrong, it's just where I was at. But as you grow, you realize that can't be the game. Not if you want depth, not if you want to build anything real. It's a very childish version of the game. It's sweet and it's innocent, but it's not sustainable. Eventually, life asks more of you. So what you actually think is bliss is actually a lot of the time relief from anxiety. So here's something I've seen again and again in my own life, and it took me a really long time to catch it. A lot of what I'd called bliss wasn't bliss. It was just relief from anxiety that I didn't even know I was feeling. And this is what makes it so tricky. The anxiety was already there, but because I trained my system into massive amounts of avoidance and missed the moment that anxiety first got stirred, I didn't register it as anxiety. I just feel this low-level itch. Something inside needed soothing, but I couldn't name it. And I didn't see it start either. It was just this sense of wanting out, but I didn't know from what. Then a desire would show up. Maybe you should smoke some weed. Maybe you should watch a spiritual video. You know that guy that you like, he really calms you down. Maybe you should make a coffee. And all of these things at that time would have given me a hit of like, yeah. And when I moved towards that, my body would relax, everything would settle. And that drop in tension, I called that bliss. But it wasn't. It was just the nervous system getting a break from something that I hadn't even realized was driving me. So I'm going to give you the exact chain reaction that happens internally that I only learned to spot a lot later, but you can use this and put it into your own system and see if it works out for you too. So firstly, in the chain reaction, anxiety gets stirred, but it goes unnoticed because I trained myself into massive amounts of avoidance. Secondly, the body starts buzzing or tightening slightly. Thirdly, you feel a low-grade need to do something about that itch inside that you just can't scratch. A comforting idea enters: weed, video, alcohol, coffee. When you do that, the system then relaxes. You label that relaxation as bliss. You follow it because you've followed it. And then that cycle repeats and repeats and repeats. And now we're doing all of these silly things and calling it following my bliss. And the problem is, if you're not watching this process closely, it feels like you're aligning with your truth. But what you're really doing is avoiding something unnamed and untamed. You're not following bliss. You're reaching for relief. And if you confuse the two, you'll keep doing what feels good in the moment while leaving the actual cause untouched and running in the background. See, the bliss you're really searching for, it isn't conditional. So eventually, when I started to realize this, the kind of bliss I was chasing, that soft, clean, peaceful feeling where everything made sense and I felt super connected and alive with life, I only ever showed up when things were going my way, when my nervous system was calm, when the room was quiet, when I was well rested, well fed, and I had no obligations pressing on me. And I thought that was alignment. But it's not. It's a narrow, high maintenance version of peace. It only works if you can keep life perfectly arranged around your preferences. And I don't know if you've seen it. Life doesn't do that. What I slowly started to understand is that the real bliss, the one that actually nourishes you, isn't about the absence of difficulty. It's not about everything feeling good either. It's about being connected to yourself, even when your mind is noisy, even when the body's a bit tense, when things are messy or unresolved. It's not, I feel amazing, so therefore I can act. It's, I feel grounded, so I can stay present. Real bliss isn't some euphoric state. It's the quiet sense that you're still with yourself, even when part of you wants to run. But that's felt. And for me, that was a huge shift because I used to think the goal was to feel good before I could do anything meaningful. But now I know that the real work is learning to stay with yourself through discomfort and not escape it. And that's the kind of bliss that doesn't vanish the moment life stops cooperating. That's the one that actually lasts. So yeah, follow your bliss can be a beautiful starting point. It woke me up. It got my stuck life moving. But eventually, it also kept me avoiding the very things that were asking for my attention. What I thought was alignment was often just escape. What I would call bliss was actually relief from anxiety that I hadn't learned how to feel. And the real bliss, the one I was actually looking for, was never about feeling good all the time. It was about being able to stay with myself even when things weren't easy. And that's what changed everything. So if this is landing for you and you've started to notice that chasing bliss, chasing signs, and chasing the next yes hasn't really led you anywhere deeper, then I'd invite you to watch this video here. It's called, Are You Chasing Signs or Avoiding the Work? Because that's the next trap that most of us fall into, isn't it? And once you see it, you can stop spinning in circles, chasing your tail like a rabid dog, and just move on with the real stuff. So you can watch that one right there.